Welcome back to the FTN NFL Team Preview Series. Host Mike Randle. Follow me on X at Randle Rand. And today we continue the second of two parts with one of my favorite accounts here on social media. That, of course, is 32BeatWriters on X at 32BeatWriters. And today, folks, we bring in the second part of our dynamic duo. Zach Hiduk is joining us to go through the NFC. The first part, if you haven't followed it on YouTube, we went through the AFC with Matt Olson, but these guys, tireless workers, collect all the insights from the beat reporters, and I find that it's super important here. So can't thank you enough for joining us here, Zach. Really excited to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We just really started to get into the official training camp season here. We had a ton of teams go in today, so we're very excited. And of course, it's a season for us, and it's been crazy and all sorts of fun.
You guys do great work. And here we go, folks. We're going to go team by team. We selected one topic from each of these teams. Get into it here with Zach and what they're learning and what we're hearing, because if you listen to the right parts, can really give you advantage in the fantasy season. Let's start here with the Dallas Cowboys right at the top here. Zach, let's talk about their rushing attack. We can talk about CeeDee Lamb, of course, but I'm a little interested in their backfield. Their rushing attack wasn't efficient last year. Pollard gone. And what are the other receiving options as you see it in terms of the target share? Brandon Cooks, Ferguson, poured one out for Michael Gallup, of course, not on the Cowboys, but a former Cowboy here who decided to retire today. So really interested because to most fantasy people, it's Dak, it's CD, and then we don't know. Break it down for us.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting situation. And yeah, you mentioned the CeeDee Lamb holdout that we just got news of just a little bit ago here. So that will certainly play into any of the receiving options. I think when it comes to the running back specifically, they brought Ezekiel Elliott in from the Patriots last year. I don't think people realize Ezekiel Elliott, I believe he was their leading receiver for the Patriots last year.
Yeah.
So let's say CeeDee Lamb does hold out a few games. Oddly enough, that's something that he can kind of still do. He may not have a ton of juice as he did in the past, but he is a veteran who does know what he's doing. And, we saw Pollard last year. Oftentimes when guys who are super efficient get a larger opportunity, that efficiency comes down, and we certainly saw that with Pollard. And then, of course, you've got Dowdle back there. I think Zeke Elliott, depending on where you're looking at right now, is RB40 and Dowdle is RB44, so they're basically free. The shot that I would take, and I would assume is probably the most productive, would be Elliott, but from an upside sorry, I'm not sure if I was having a bit of an internet connection there, but if
you're good.
Problem, let me know.
You're good. Yep.
So, yeah, and then when it comes to the other receiving options like Brandon Cooks or Jake Ferguson, I mean, Ferguson's obviously a great option for you as a tight end. And then, of course, if CD holds out for any serious length of time, Cooks is also a great option. And personally, I think he has more juice than people would maybe give him credit for. And so, he may be a good value for you regardless of whether CD holds out.
Yeah, perfect on both accounts here. And I do think that even if they add a running back, cough, cough, Javonte Williams, who knows here? I would say, right, I would say that Zeke Elliott is going to get those goal line touches, which, of course, you can't replicate in fantasy. Moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles, probably a huge question, or maybe one of the most important questions in all of fantasy here, Zach, is Saquon Barkley. Because I go through these best ball drafts, and the first round, I feel like I know where I'm going. Second round, do I want a receiver? I'm not sure. And you're staring at Saquon Barkley, who should be in the best situation he's ever had in his NFL career, ready for a career year, but people are worried about the tush push and Jalen Hurts. And what are they going to do with the goal line here? So break it down for us with the Eagles, because I do think Saquon, if you can nail Saquon, whether he's going to have a massive year or he's going to be disappointing, that is a pivot point here in your fantasy drafts.
Yeah, Jason Kelce retired this year, and I don't think that's going to impact their strategy too much, but I know people were a little bit worried about them changing things up. If that is something that impacts what they do, I would think that it might impact that tush push, because he was definitely a key part of making that happen when Jalen Hurts lined up. Now, I will say that, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, so forgive me, but there were opportunities for DeAndre Swift last year actually within the red zone that just didn't end up paying off. And so even if you're not getting those that end up on the 1 yard line and being pushed in by the rest of the team there on the back of Jalen Hurts, I do think you're going to have those red zone opportunities regardless. And as you mentioned, Saquon is on a much better team than he's ever been on. And I think that it's easy to think, okay, that he's a little bit maybe older, and the Eagles and Jalen Hurts are just going to snipe so many of those touchdowns from him. But it's a high flying offense, no pun intended. And I just think that Barkley's right now in the range of Jonathan Taylor and Achan and all of those guys. So you are buying him not necessarily at his ceiling, but at a pretty high price. I'm totally fine with paying that. I had my I had some skepticism previously, but after thinking through things and seeing that they probably brought Barkley in with the idea to take some of that load off of Hurts, and also enhance the passing game that Hurts and Swift were able to utilize a little bit more last year, I think that you're going to get a lot from Barkley, and I wouldn't be disappointed in him, I don't think, this year.
Zach just released our stats hub today, which has all the data, very topical. Last year, we had DeAndre Swift here at FTN Fantasy, 38 red zone carries. That's comparable to Gus Edwards, who had 39. Kenneth Walker also had 38. So did Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara. So you're right. He ended up just converting one goal line carry there with a goal line carry, but the red zone did have 38 attempts. Excellent point. Giants now, Daniel Jones, pivot point. I guess they don't believe in him because we've been watching Hard Knocks, but they have him as the quarterback. So I'll modify my question to you. How do you think he's going to do? Because this is a guy who 2 years ago had a pretty darn good quarterback season from a fantasy perspective, top 12 quarterback. He can run. He just got the weapons upgrade. He's got neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson. What do you think here, Daniel Jones? Obviously, we're trying to go a different direction, but what do you think about the season this year with DJ and the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, his rushing upside and all of that definitely helps you out with that. As far as where I'm selecting him in fantasy, I mean, I'm definitely scared of it. And if I could avoid him, I'm going to. But maybe he's a guy you can pick up and play on certain weeks. That's probably what I would do with him, at least in a standard home league or something to that effect. As far as whether or not he plays the entirety of the season, I don't know. As you mentioned, they don't have any faith in the guy. They tried to trade up with the Patriots for number 3 to grab wow, why can't I think? I'm a Patriots fan and I can't think of Drake May. There you go. So and but it's weird, right? Yeah, you're right. They added neighbors, so they're kind of giving him a shot. They've tried to do what they can with the line over the past couple of years, but no, I don't think they have any actual faith in him. The situation with the coach and Dayball, I have to assume they're going to try to win as many games as they can. But if he's just not doing super well, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Drew Lock by week 10, 11, 12, or somewhere in that range.
Zach, last team, Washington Commanders. I have been beating the drum for Brian Robinson, so I'm going to try to lead you here into the answer. I want you to say Robinson versus Eckler. I've quoted here on our live drafts on the Discord so many times. 2012, Robert Griffin III, and the plotter that is Alfred Morris. That ended up with 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns. Brian Robinson, better receiving back than Alf Morris ever was. I think he can do some damage here with Jaden Daniels. What say you? B-Rob versus Eckler with the Washington backfield.
Yeah, I think that I would tend to agree with you. I don't know how similar to Robert Griffin in his success we'll see out of Jaden Daniels, but I will say that it is ironic that the same team drafted both guys. Robinson is at RB 30 right now, and Eckler is at 40. Again, depends where you're drafting, but I think that's appropriate. I would take Robinson ahead of Eckler as well. We had a quote from Ben Standig of The Athletic, covers the Commanders down there, that he expected, about 12 to 8 to 12 touches maybe for Eckler at the moment. I feel like that kind of makes sense. And Robinson would get the majority of that. And as you mentioned, he's also a pass catcher. So Eckler is going to be there to help. But when it comes to Jaden Daniels, he scrambles to run typically. He doesn't scramble or buy time to dump it off to the running back. And if that's kind of Eckler's role in this whole shebang, I'm not sure that as a third down back thing is a super desirable thing in and of itself. And Robinson, I think, will clearly be the guy for goal line and things of that nature. So you kind of might have Eckler playing, honestly, somewhat of an Antonio Gibson role as last year, and Robinson's beat him out. He may have beaten himself out there, but either way, that's kind of what I would agree with you as well, for sure.
NFC North, Detroit Lions. Boy, Jahmyr Gibbs. I'll give you both sides. Number one, he's super explosive, finishes the RB8 and PPR formats. But David Montgomery isn't going anywhere. And Dan Campbell, like many NFL coaches, seems to think we want to keep both our guys fresh. Now, those stats are a little skewed because in the 2 games Montgomery missed, Gibbs went ballistic. RB3 week 7, RB1 week 8. That was 126 total yards, 189, 2 total touchdowns here. One of those games had 9 receptions. Gibbs, Monty, where are you going with the Lions?
Yeah, you make good points. And I think the thing with running backs is they're almost always guaranteed to miss a game or two. So the fact that happened last year, I wouldn't be surprised to see if that happens again. The expectation from everything that I've been able to see is that Gibbs obviously gets a little bit larger of a role. He didn't start the season off super hot necessarily, but he had 182 attempts on the season, 71 targets, and 11 total touchdowns. The thing I would worry about potentially coming down is that touchdown total. I think he had 10 on the ground and 1 through the air, but obviously he's a really great receiver. And they didn't bring in any receivers of note at all in the offseason that are going to impact this. So worst case scenario, he's number 3 behind St. Brown and the tight end there. Man, I'm really blanking on you tonight. I really apologize there. Laporta. I don't believe in Jameson Williams all that much personally. So maybe if you're a Jameson Williams truther, you disagree with me there. But I think we see an increased role. And I do believe that David Montgomery, he's going to have a role for sure. That is definitely true. But he is 27 now, and he's a 0 in the passing game. So if you're behind or you need somebody to make a big play for you, it's always going to be Gibbs.
Exactly. The thing I love about the Lions is it's very consolidated. It's Amara, it's Laporta, it's Gibbs. That's it. It's great for fantasy purposes. Green Bay. I will preface this by saying I love the Packers. I think Jordan Love is an MVP candidate. I think Christian Watson is the clear wide receiver 1 and establishes himself. We've heard about Jaden Reed. Of course, Jaden Reed, really solid rookie year, but was only on the field for a very small amount of 2 receiver sets last year per FTN data. Of course, my question is the backfield. It's Jacobs, 1-year contract, essentially, then get out of it, ton of money, run him into the ground. I got it. However, there is a chasm of difference between what we as fantasy players and people who have watched kids in college think and what NFL coaches think. A.J. Dillon was running people over today in practice, which didn't surprise me. Marshawn Lloyd, super talented, athletic, fast, elusive, whatever you would want. But why do I have a feeling A.J. Dillon's not going anywhere? Talk about the backfield touches here with Matt LaFleur in this Green Bay attack, because I think it's going to put up a lot of points. So we want value in the backfield. The question is, who's behind Jacobs?
Yeah. And I think you're phrasing that right. Who is behind Jacobs? I spoke with Andy Herman a couple of weeks ago. He's a beat reporter for the Packers up there. And it definitely was, the thing that Jacobs is going to be the guy until for some reason he isn't. So, if you're drafting him specifically, obviously I think you can rely on that. But when it comes to the guys in the backfield, what you have to worry about with Marshawn Lloyd is his tendency to fumble. So he can make some really, really big plays. And personally, I think he's far more talented than A.J. Dillon. And he's a very different vibe and different flavor of running back than A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon has, somehow he's stuck around, and Aaron Jones is gone now. But when A.J. Dillon himself has been called upon, I don't think that he's lived up to, everything that they've hoped. I will say that today there was some quote about his LaFleur, I think, made a comment about his abs or something like that. But in all reality, I think if Lloyd, who is currently dealing with a little bit of a hip issue, so that may play into things here, can show consistency and earn some trust as far as, his ball security is concerned, I think that he should easily be able to push for that number 2 spot, especially, after, a third of the way through the season. But yeah, so if Jacobs were to go down, I'll cut it here. I would want Lloyd rather than Dillon because he has by far the biggest upside if he can get a handle on the ball.
Zach, you can go however you want to go with the Minnesota Vikings here. The question I was asking you about was Sam Darnold. I have heard everything that Sam Darnold has a chance to start from the beat reporters that we've talked to the entire season because McCarthy isn't ready. And if Sam Darnold starts, I mean, you have Justin Jefferson, who's pretty darn good. You have Aaron Jones, can catch passes out of the backfield. I think Hawkinson will be back sooner than people think, maybe late October, somewhere in there. Jordan Addison, I don't know unless you have information on him. It's been a rough offseason. You have Jordan Addison. Viking offense, thoughts here? Sam Darnold? I mean, maybe we're buying low here.
Yeah, pour one out for your Dynasty Addison shares. You're definitely not selling him anytime soon. But yeah, the quote today from Kevin O'Connell was that each guy is on their own progression path, basically, to something to that effect, and that Darnold is going to be seen. He didn't phrase it such that he said Darnold is seeing the majority of the snaps with the ones, but he did say that the majority of Darnold's snaps would be with the ones, which I think implies basically the same thing. So, if I was making a bet on who's starting week 1, I'm betting that it's going to be Darnold. They obviously drafted McCarthy very high for a reason. But if I'm a fantasy owner of Justin Jefferson, I don't know how worried I am necessarily of either one being the quarterback. But I would probably want Darnold to be the guy, as insane as that sounds, simply because I know that he'll sling the ball, and Jefferson will catch it more often than not. So that's my preference, and so that's what I'd be rooting for if I was drafting Jefferson.
Yeah, I mean, that's the right answer sound effect here. Well, how about Michael Pittman? I mean, we thought the world ended when Anthony Richardson goes out last year and Gardner Minshew comes in, and Minshew was just throwing BBs to Pittman. So I agree. I think Darnold's no idiot. He's a veteran quarterback. I'm going to throw it to Justin Jefferson. I agree. I think that's an excellent take. Chicago Bears backfield. All the DeAndre Swift truthers just come at me with vitriol here. Yes, I know he was solid in the Lions, but they let him go. Yes, I know he had a good first 7 weeks, but he was the RB30 after week 7 last year with the Eagles. Those are 2 really good offensive lines, Zach, that he's run behind. Now he's going to Chicago. We think he's just stepping in. Roschon Johnson there, Khalil Herbert lingering. Bears backfield, what do you got?
Yeah, after talking with beat reporters last year, I kind of expected Roschon Johnson to come on earlier and take over. He dealt with some injuries. He never really got that opportunity, never really took advantage of the opportunity he did get in a serious way. So I think, you're right. Swift, I don't think is a super high volume guy anyways. So even if he's the quote unquote lead, I think there's room for other backs there. Now, of course, you've got the rookie quarterback problem when it comes to Caleb Williams. Not that he's going to be bad by any means. I expect him to be good for a rookie, but good for a rookie still does not a top 10 offense make almost ever. So From a touchdown upside perspective, I don't know how much juice there is to squeeze out of the backfield there. They've got 3 really good wide receivers now that they drafted. Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen's there, and you've got DJ Moore. So yeah, if I'm taking one, whoever is the lowest ADP right now between Herbert and Swift, which I'm almost positive
it'll be Herbert.
That's
yes.
the I'm going to take. So it sounds like I agree with you. I think at this point.
Call this Justin Forsett syndrome, but I know a lot of running backs that have burned me who don't seem like super exciting, but we're projecting them for so much volume, Zach, that we just can't ignore it. Rachaad White wasn't efficient, but he was the only game in town. We going back to that well with the Buccaneers here? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the thing is, they drafted Bucky Irving, but I don't think he particularly scares me again if I'm a Rachaad White owner. Now, I, like you in some capacity, try to be Rachaad White agnostic because it just feels icky, but if you've got the opportunity and you don't have a running back after those first couple of rounds, I think that makes sense, as terrible as it is to say. The only worry for me, you did have Dave Canales move from the Bucs to take over head coaching, the opportunity over with the Panthers. So, if Baker Mayfield isn't as I don't want to say great, but as decent as he was last year, that offense could take a step back, and that would be my concern. But as far as who is going to lead this backfield, I think, by default, Rachaad White is definitely the answer.
Yeah, I get nervous, Zach, when we have teams such as Tampa Bay, although our Aaron Schatz here at FTN did predict them to win the division. When people are surprised they weren't going to do well and they did, you lose Canales. It's Baker Mayfield again. Geno Smith had a good year too, and then he sort of came back to earth. So I agree. I'm a little trepidation there with Tampa Bay. Moving over to the Saints, it's all about Alvin Kamara. As much as Alvin Kamara last year missed a couple games with the suspension, 75 receptions, fantastic. Number 2 among running backs. 466 receiving yards, not good. That's 5.8 per reception here. Alvin Kamara holding out. What do you think? Because he's the center of the Saints offense.
Yeah, I mean, he's last year definitely proved me wrong. A friend of mine traded for him in a dynasty league, and I clowned on him, and then he became the PPR king. So, he's definitely not efficient in any real regard as he used to be, and so that is what's weird here. Derek Carr obviously was not on the same page oftentimes with Chris Olave last season, so we'll see how this offense does this year. You mentioned Kamara does have a hold, and we got news of that today. We posted something. I think he posted a photo with Marshawn Lynch. I'm just here so I don't get fined. Under the new CBA, that is the thing. The players, and we'll get to this when we speak on the NFC West, just do not have a lot of leverage, and so they have to show up unless you're somebody, I suppose, like CeeDee Lamb. That doesn't mean they're participating. So his contract is weird. I was looking at it before this, and the Saints and their contracts are always weird, but I really don't know, if they didn't want him around, why they didn't get rid of him earlier, because he has like an $18 million dead cap hit for this year. That if they didn't plan to have him around, they would have gotten rid of him already. So that tells me that they're planning on keeping him. But the next year in 2025, he's got like a $10 million dead cap hit, which isn't impossible to overcome, but that's still a lot. So it feels to me like some sort of restructuring would make sense for both, but I frankly don't know what that looks like, and it's the Saints, so I don't think we could really tell you what's going to happen.
Very true. This next one may be the easiest question I ask you here with the Atlanta Falcons. Everyone got burned last year with Bijan and Tyler Algier, and we saw it right away. As much as he was drafted as a top 10 pick, everyone said, imagine if he gives Tyler Algier carries. And sure enough, he did. I think he had 1 or maybe 2 touchdowns, Algier, in that first game, and it was sort of downhill from there. But still productive rookie season, still flash, still an elite running back. But are the wheels coming off here, training wheels coming off? We're going to get full Bijan this year, who could look like a Christian McCaffrey-like clone.
Yeah. The Mr. Mustache that was head coach last year was
Smith,
not anybody's friend and he would basically become fantasy enemy number 1 there. And I think, appropriately we're excited. And the reality is, as you mentioned, Kirk is not known for as a rushing quarterback or mobile quarterback, especially coming off of an Achilles. So, will we see Michael Penix to start the year? It seems to me, from all the indication we have, that Kirk Cousins is going to be good to go, although we haven't seen a ton of solid, evidence of that yet. So we'll see in the next couple of days, hopefully. But you're going to see more red zone usage. You're going to see him catch a ton of passes in relation to, Kirk's lack of mobility there. And as much as, they have Kyle Pitts and they've got Drake London, but again, if we reference back to the Detroit Lions, he's really their third option at worst, right? So for me, I'm super excited about him. And a Christian McCaffrey, I don't even know if you have to put the word light after that.
Yeah, very true. Let's go to Carolina. Boy, the hard part in fantasy football, Zach, is believing when no one else believes. Last year, I was very proud with my underdog best ball team. I had the first 3 picks as the eventual Best Ball Mania champion. That was Amon-Ra, CeeDee Lamb, Mari Cooper, 3 for 3. The difference, of course, which was many, was number 1, I didn't believe in CJ Stroud, and I didn't get Kyren Williams. But CJ Stroud was the quarterback persona non grata, which this year has become Bryce Young. But I see a path. Remember, last year they had a win total of 7.5 in the preseason. Now it's dropped all the way down. Talk to me about the importance of the running game with Carolina so that Bryce Young, who we just saw the video today, looks like a middle school kid going to camp, he can get some pressure off of that Jonathan Brooks and this rushing attack. When are we going to see him? Because I think it's critical, as Canales has stated, to the success of Bryce Young.
Yeah, as you mentioned, head coach Dave Canales said that the intent of our offense is to run the ball. That seems pretty clear to me. So, when he's healthy, I'm expecting that they do everything possible to take that pressure off of Bryce Young. Again, to reiterate basically what you just said, he did start here on the pup, again, as expected. Reading articles and things and just getting the general vibe from the team and all of the beat reports, it seems as though they are taking their time with Jonathan Brooks. So when we see him is not defined yet. Personally, I do think they're going to make him the RB1 as soon as they can, but they're doing everything they can to be careful with him. So I don't expect him to be I don't know that I would even expect him to be playing by week 1, but I definitely don't expect him to be like the quote unquote starter by week 1. So if I'm drafting him, I'm kind of drafting him with that hope of like week 4, week 5. That's when, usage starts picking up. But with injuries like this and a team that's going to be really careful with their highest drafted asset this year, I think, well, not quite highest, you guys able to get, but very highly drafted asset. They're going to be careful with him. So that's the only thing to watch.
We'll bring it home with the NFC West here. Great job, Zach. 4 teams left. San Francisco 49ers, really not much drama except for one person, and that's Brandon Ayuk, who did report here, doesn't have a ton of leverage. But I do want to ask you, is he going to be there? Do you think he could possibly sit out regular season games? Are they really thinking of trading him? And they said they had no interest, but we've heard that before. Brandon Ayuk, super talented receiver. Niners want to win a Super Bowl. He's an integral part, but he's not happy. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think that he plays all the games that he's healthy for this year. Whether that's with the 49ers or not, I'm not certain. Tim Kawakami today, who covers them for The Athletic, just said that he believes that there's got to be some sort of tacit agreement between the two teams that talks will keep on happening. Again, similar to the Kamara situation, he's doing this hold-in thing, and we've seen that before with other players as well. As you mentioned, they made it pretty clear that they don't want to give up Ayuk. The Patriots specifically have tried to trade for him around the draft time. I think that if they were going to trade him, they would have had to do that already, or at least if that was in any sort of their plans. Maybe at this point they're being forced, but yeah, players just don't have a ton of leverage. And frankly, I don't think they need him to win games at this moment. Obviously, they want him. So I'm not saying that they're okay just going in the postseason without him. But, you've got Debo, Kittle, and CMC. That is plenty to get you through a couple of weeks. And it's going to be really brutal for him if he doesn't play. So I think he has every incentive to play, and they have every incentive to bring him there. But, I don't know. It's weird. We'll have to monitor it. I do think he plays all the games he's healthy for, though, whether it's for the 49ers or somebody else.
Pardon me, Ram fans, that I don't buy into Kyren Williams. He was a 5th-round pick out of Notre Dame, 4.65 speed, not great burst, not great agility, but had a monster fantasy season. But he had foot fractures in 2022, ankle injury. The ankle injury popped up during the season again. The ankle injury is popped up now in the offseason, and they drafted Blake Corum. I'm buying Blake Corum. Does that make Kyren Williams a value, or do you think really this was, hey, Kyren, great season, fantastic, we don't think he can do it again?
Yeah, I don't think they were necessarily saying any particular thing about Williams other than they want to get him some help. But that doesn't mean that you're going to like it if you're a Kyren owner. He's going as RB8 right now, right behind ETN and in front of Achane there. Again, depending on where you're drafting. But we're speaking with Jordan Rodriguez. I'm speaking with her Thursday morning. And so this is a question I'm specifically going to ask her because I'm very interested in this. So for all of you who, want to hear that beyond the beat, you can excuse my self-promotion there, but you can check that out. There's been some speculative rumblings that things could be more evenly split. The thing with McVay is he just tends to lean on one guy. So the reality is we don't know right at this point, but I might be able to have a little bit more clarity when I talk to Jordan on Thursday, and hopefully we do.
I'm a late round tight end guy. It's very hard for me to draft a tight end early. So Zach, I live in the Isaiah Likely, Tyler Conklin, Cade Otton area. And another guy I like is Noah Fant. My argument for them is this, Zach. They could have let him go. He's been disappointing. New coaching staff comes in. Here's a big guarantee and a contract of 2 years, $21 million, whatever it was. I think he's going to be part of the offense. And this guy is one of the more athletic tight ends in the entire NFL. Am I missing the boat here? Noah Fant, Seattle. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think, if you've been on Noah Fant for a while, you've definitely been disappointed. But yeah, you see, he was a Madden favorite tight end, at least for me, a couple of years ago, because he is athletic, and you don't understand why that hasn't worked. They did come out and say that, excuse me, that they intend to not put him in so many situations where he's blocking, inferring, they're going to try to, utilize him more as a pass catcher and use Pharaoh Brown for that blocking. The thing of it is, they've got 3 wide receivers, again, similar to Chicago in that are all very, very talented. And even if you don't believe in Tyler Lockett, he's going to get everything that, is coming his way this season. He's probably going to catch them all. So, you mentioned guys like Tyler Conklin, I don't think you mentioned Johnny Smith, Cade Otton, Isaiah Likely. I really, really like those guys more than I like maybe the 4th option. So I'll have to disagree with you a little bit, but that's not to say that you're not going to get anything from him. I just like the other guys in his range a little bit more.
Yeah, per FTN data, Cade Otton, highest route participation of any tight end last year. Zach, you killed it. Last question, bring it home. Boy, James Conner isn't exciting. And people don't see James Conner as someone who jumps off the page with like Devon A-Chain athleticism. But he sure as heck gets the ball, and he sure as heck is a big part of this offense. I think he's going to stay a big part of this offense. 3rd-round pick on Trey Benson, though, may say otherwise. What say you?
No, I completely agree with you. Tyler Drake of Arizona Sports, talked with him a month and a half or so ago. I forget exactly when, but I asked him this exact question. And similar to Josh Jacobs with the Packers, it's going to be James Conner until it is not. Now, James Conner has never really finished a season. Last year, he missed 4 or 5 games thereabouts. So if that happens, then of course you're going to see a serious opportunity for Trey Benson. This also was a sneaky good offense last year. I don't think people realized that when Kyler came back, it was actually pretty good. And we could see that, now that he's fully healthy, being pretty serious this coming year, even though they don't have a ton of weapons outside of Harrison Jr. there and Trey McBride. But yeah, so you may have a sneaky opportunity for Trey Benson, but you have to draft Benson with the assumption that he's only going to get that opportunity if James Conner goes down. So I think James Conner is a pretty good value. And if, again, you're in a dynasty league or something like that, getting him dirt cheap is a perfect move if you're trying to win something right now.
Yeah, Bo Brack brought it up that if Matt Prater's miss a field goal, they actually go 500 against that difficult schedule down the stretch with Kyler Murray. Folks, Zach Hiduk on X at 32BeatWriters, one of my favorite accounts. They do incredible work. You heard they have Jordan Rodriguez coming on here at the end of this week. Zach, can't thank you enough. NFC, your buddy Matt Olson did AFC. We're ready to go. We'd love to get you guys back on as we get into August here, get to the end of August as we get into the season. But August 1st, it's coming next week. We're going to have the Hall of Fame game. Football is back, and we really appreciate a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
The NFL Team Preview Series is sponsored by Boom Fantasy, your top choice for daily fantasy sports action. Boom Fantasy has the most innovative games that cater to both casual and hardcore fans. Win up to 500 times your entry only at Boom Fantasy. Download now on the App Store and Google Play. Use promo code FTN to get a no-sweat bonus up to $100.